Hello all sentient beings and welcome to Transmissions Alt Mode, where we talk about all news, comics, and media related to the... On this mind-blowing episode of Transmissions Alt Mode, we finally get to review Transformers Issue 1. What could possibly go wrong with a brand new Issue 1? In other news, IDW investors want to sell the company. I guess I spoke too soon, guys. We also have an interview with new Transformers writer Brian Ruckley. Today is Friday, March 15th, 2019, and this is episode 120 of Transmissions Alt Mode.
Welcome to Transmissions Alt Mode, the podcast that's got a new Patreon goal: to buy a certain comic book company. I'm your host Charles, aka Big C, and I'm joined by the excellent Transmissions team. Jeremy, aka Yakko.
Hey, how you doing?
And Daryl, the Cybertronian Beast.
Hey, what's going on? Let's talk Transformers.
All right, it is TFCon weekend. Sadly, we are not at TFCon.
Well, one of us is, but not the one on the show.
Yes.
Because he's at TFCon.
Yeah. That's right.
Yoshi. We record these live, right?
Yeah, we record it live. We're talking right now. We are in your iPhone or Android phone right now talking to you. But Yoshi is at TFCon, so if you see him, say hi, give him a hug. He loves that. Mm-hmm. Ask him to swear for you, whatever.
Grab his beard. Also something he loves quite a bit.
He might want to do an interview with you or take a selfie. Humor him, please.
As penance for touching his beard.
Or pull your beard back.
But yeah, we miss everyone at TFCon. It seems like it's going to be a star-studded, action-packed event in Los Angeles. So hope everyone has fun.
Yeah, basically it's just us that aren't going to be there.
Yeah. So got a severe case of FOMO. The show must go on, so let's get into it. As always, we start off with donations, thanking all you lovely folks out there who give us money on Patreon and PayPal. And we have a big thank you to Derek. This is not number one Derek. This is another very fine Derek, who has just become a new duly appointed supporter of the Transmissions podcast because he has upped his Patreon pledge. So,
although I gotta say, he's making quite the case to become number one Derek.
All right, number one Derek, I think we need a counteroffer from you.
Have a cage match.
We need a bidding war.
Where they just stand in a cage and throw money.
We stand in a cage, they throw money at us.
Right, there, that'll work too. Either way, someone's getting in a cage.
But I think the core message is thank you, so thank you.
Yes.
As always, if you would like to become a Transmissions supporter, just go to transmissionspodcast.com/support, and there you will find links to contribute on Patreon or PayPal. If you don't want to become a contributor, you can help us out in another way by buying some merchandise from our store at transmissionspodcast.com/shop. And that's where you can get merchandise from our TeePublic store. Also, if you want to get anything from TeePublic, you can go through our link and still help us out. So, lots of cool geeky themed t-shirts there and other merchandise. It's, nice stuff. Of course, you can always get a Transmissions shirt. That helps the most.
Or mug.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff.
So check it out. All right, well, let's start off this alt mode with some comics news. All right, so continuing, this news broke just after we recorded last week, and it's the continuing theme of just what the heck is going on with IDW. So, after a bunch of some not great different news stories about IDW last week, we now have an open letter from ADW Capital Partners LP, which is a company that holds 9% of IDW Media Holdings stock.
And a catchy name.
Yes. They are saying, well, I guess it's ADW Capital Partners, and the guy writing the letter is Adam D. Wyden. So I guess we know where the initials come from. Yeah, they're saying, hey, IDW, maybe you should think about selling the company and getting us shareholders some return on our investment. So,
are they smelling blood in the water here? And they're a sinking ship, and they want to cash in before their chips are worth nothing. I'm mixing metaphors here, but I thought.
I don't speak, investor speak, but reading between the lines, that's probably not a bad assessment. But the letter is pretty praiseworthy of IDW and its IP properties, and they actually compliment getting Chris Ryall back in charge at the IDW publishing arm. And they say, IDW, since it's an independent company, just doesn't have the capital to really monetize its IP the way it should. And if they were to be acquired by a bigger company, that would have, and they could, change their model to licensing, better way to license their IP instead of shouldering all the costs themselves of production to make media from that IP. That would be more profitable. So
the problem is, what IP do they really have that's worth a lot? They have Lock and Key, which is probably their biggest, most successful IP long term.
And it's almost ready to come out.
Right. And then they have the Winona Earp stuff. Beyond that, what do they have? Everything else.
V-Wars.
Everything else they have that's successful is their licensed properties that, the Hasbro stuff, Ninja Turtles. They have some Disney and some Marvel stuff.
Yeah. But I mean, who are we kidding? IDW was built on licensed IP.
But that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's clear to me that all of the mistakes that IDW has made that has led up to stuff like this happening is putting too much stock in the IP that they actually own, and maybe going too far too fast. Like, most of their money losses have been on the entertainment side, trying to finance the Winona Earp show on their own rather than going with a partner. I think Sci-Fi was going to drop them. I might be completely wrong on this, but from what I understand, Sci-Fi was going to drop them, and they opted to finance it themselves, which free show for Sci-Fi, and it kept it. I might be wrong on that, but that's what I was thinking has happened. They're dumping money into this stuff, and it's hurting all the other arms that they have. We look at this org chart here that on this article. The comic side is IDW Publishing and Top Shelf Productions. I don't know anything about Top Shelf, but IDW Publishing seems to be correcting the ship in terms of their leadership changes that they made that we talked about last time. I think their games, have been fairly successful. The IDW Limited stuff has always been pretty well regarded. That's those big, artist edition books that you would see in the comic store that are really expensive but really well done. So I think they just need to maybe sell off or shutter the TV movie production side. And, I think
it's an interesting idea, but I mean, has any of us actually watched one of the shows? Has anybody, I'm just doing a quick search here on Winona Earp. I've never actually watched the show because I don't find it interesting, but everything I'm just finding real quickly here is saying it's a great show.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard that it's a great show, but TV shows are expensive.
Sure they are. It seems bad to kill a show that's fantastic, I
mean, that's why you could spin it off or spin off the entire media side of things to make the entire, to make IDW Media Holdings more solvent, and maybe license the characters and stuff to the spin-off company. That's usually what you see people do.
Yeah. Charles, you're a doctor. What's your prescription for IDW? This is going to be your new catchphrase now. Since you've told us you're getting rid of, pulling a Shelton, your new your new catchphrase is going to be, my prescription is. You have to say it like a cowboy.
Why?
Because it's your catchphrase.
Maybe the reason they're in the pits is you stopped pulling a Shelton every week.
Yeah. You're the problem.
If your business model depends on me pulling a Shelton and just me, then it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
Jeremy, you're probably right in the sense that financing all the TV production and media stuff yourself is probably not the way to become profitable. But I don't know. I mean, I haven't watched any of the Wynonna Earp stuff too. But I mean, one thing I thought was funny, like when I saw like IDW tweeted IDW Publishing tweeted about the upcoming Transformers comic releasing next week, and then you had a bunch of replies like, "Hey, save Wynonna Earp," and it's like, okay, direct that to the media guys at IDW. Why are you directing that at IDW Publishing? They're not going to help you save Wynonna Earp from cancellation. But apparently, it's got a dedicated fan base that. But, I mean, I don't know. It's definitely difficult. I definitely don't want to see IDW go away because it couldn't sustain its its growth.
I'm looking on TV.com, and I'm assuming they rate TV shows because that seems to be what they have here. All 3 seasons of Wynonna Earp, and they rate them out of 10. There's not a single episode goes below a 7, and most of them are in the 8s. And I mean, I kind of want to check it out now if they're that good.
Yeah, but I think it's just Westerns aren't for everybody, and I think that's kind of where it sits.
And Wynonna Earp was originally an Image property.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, I have the actual first appearance of Wynonna Earp, and it's an Image comic. But that's something for another story, I guess. I think you could be right that they could sell off if the company is asking them, or this investor guy is asking them to sell off the company, they could get rid of the media side. And that would probably satiate this investor because that would probably, save them a lot of money. If the media side is hemorrhaging money like we all assume it is, you could stop the bleeding there and just put it to bed. And if the show is actually as good as everyone says it is, and the ratings are true, you could probably get somebody to pick it up.
Yeah, I mean, sell all that to an existing production company, license your characters and your IP to that company, and then you'll also be getting some return on it as that company. If it is a good show and they make it work, you're getting licensing fees back.
Yeah.
They need to listen to us. We can solve all their problems.
Yep.
Well, unfortunately, I'm not licensed to give company prescriptions. So,
you're not a doctor in economics.
I'm disappointed in you.
Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about some actual comics now instead of just business news. Going back to Mazinger Z, the Mazinger Z versus Transformers crossover. There's more cover images. This is the regular cover by Go Nagai, the creator of Mazinger Z. So you can check that out. TFW has the image. I think they're really pushing this hard. It's supposed to come out at the end of this month, so at the end of March 28th. So for all our Japanese listeners, enjoy that. And I guess any listeners who aren't Japanese but can understand it, or just like the art, and will import it. But there you go.
I'm really wondering if we'll eventually get this translated and in some kind of special release here.
I don't know. I'm doubtful, but stranger things have happened. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of love for Mazinger Z, at least in the West. I vaguely remember Transor Z as a kid, but not enough to even Google search for it.
If it's picked up by a big streaming service like Netflix or something, I could see IDW working with the publisher of this in Japan to bring it over. It could be years down the line.
Mm-hmm.
But something like that, I could see to tie in with something else that's in popular culture. They could kind of latch onto it.
All right. More news from Japan, but from IDW. So a Japanese company, Village Books, is going to release a licensed or translated version of the IDW Last Stand of the Wreckers. So a Japanese language Last Stand of the Wreckers will be out on May 30th. So
Village Books also is doing the Matzinger Z book.
Oh, they are? Okay. Yeah, makes sense. So if you could read Japanese, you can check out Last Stand of the Wreckers.
Expect future convention news about creators of this going to Japan. I'd expect that to happen in probably the next year or so.
Mm-hmm. Next, we have more teaser images from the IDW Ghosts of Cybertron Ghostbusters Transformers crossover. And here we have some pictures of Decepticons versus Gozer. So a Gozer portal has appeared on Cybertron, and a Gozer robot with robot terror dogs is confronting Megatron and the Decepticons. This is art by Dan Schoening, who is the regular Ghostbusters artist, and I have to say he's doing some pretty good Transformers here. These are all very G1 style Transformers. I like what I'm seeing here.
The colorist is very much doing the Transformers the movie look on, like the way that the bots are colored. It's very nice.
Yeah, very shiny. Yeah,
I love how Soundwave has an analysis of Gozer in his little chest display.
Yep, very cool. All right. Next, we have interviews about the new Transformers series that is out this week. So first one is from IGN. This is an interview with editor-in-chief John Barber and Hasbro representative Michael Kelly. So they talk about how the Transformers franchise is trying something new. So that's interesting. They talk about bringing in new creators and having a clean break with the old continuity. Also, they mention a brand new character that was not mentioned anywhere else. He doesn't figure in issue 1 of the series, but he is coming later on and is actually representing a neurodivergent character. So actually, similar to a character on the autistic or autism spectrum, which it's interesting. I mean, I don't know. I think I've mentioned it before, but I do have a son with autism, and they mentioned the things they mentioned in here with this character Geomotus, and having some little shapes that he needs to play with to help deal with the world around him. That's very reminiscent of some of the things my son and other kids with autism deal with. So I'm interested to see where that comes from. I wish we had known about this before we had interviewed Brian Ruckley, the writer of the comic, so I could ask him about it. So I wonder if he has some familiarity with people in the autism spectrum. But this is it's just interesting to see this being added into the Transformers lineup here. And
his look is pretty neat, kind of reminiscent of in alt mode of some of the rovers we've sent to Mars. And I think it's a unique looking alt mode.
Yep. Issue 1 has already been out, so hopefully by now you've read it. But if you haven't, this character does not appear, so he's coming at some point, but not yet. So I guess we'll have to wait and see how he figures into the story. Okay, another interview from Newsarama with Brian Ruckley, the writer of the new Transformers series. And one thing I thought was interesting about this interview at Newsarama was how they likened it to a year 1 Transformers story, which, that's when you think about it, that makes perfect sense because it does start right before the war. So, it's a pretty good interview. Also, we have an interview from Doom Rocket, another website, with both Brian Ruckley and the artist Angel Hernandez. And they all talk about wanting to how they are rendering these characters, how they're designing these characters and working with them. I did like that both the writer and the artist are focused on the characters as the foundation of the Transformers story. So that's something we don't see in the live action movies, unfortunately. But I'm glad to see that tradition's continuing in the comics. One thing I thought was interesting about all these interviews is that they don't mention Or they still mention Ron Joseph as also sharing art duties on the Transformers comic, but as I'm sure all of you have listened to our interview with Brian Ruckley this week, he mentioned that Ron Joseph is not working on the book anymore and has his role has been taken over by Cachet Whitman. You heard that from us first. No one else has mentioned that, so I guess these interviews were done a little bit further in advance before they were published. But so I thought that was interesting. So yeah, all these interviews are, it's nice getting all this publicity with the new issue, new series coming out. But you should definitely go and listen to our interview with Brian Ruckley that released just a couple of days ago. So you should have already gotten it in your podcast feed. If you haven't, go look for it. Or we've done something terribly wrong. Something has gone terribly wrong if you haven't gotten it. But yeah, listen to our interview. I think we go a little bit more in depth than these interviews, and we had a good solid hour with Mr. Ruckley to talk about his take on the. And
if you have not read the book
so.
first, we give spoiler warning. The second half of the interview does get into spoilers, so you will be warned.
Yeah. All right, and with that, we will move on to our comic review. And this week we are doing Transformers #1, A Bold New Era. We recorded this interview a little bit in advance, so we actually got Yoshi to join us. So take a listen to our special Transformers #1 review. All right, and the moment has arrived. We are going to review the new iteration of Transformers. So this is from IDW. We're back at the beginning. Transformers #1, The World in Your Eyes, Part 1. Written by Brian Ruckley. Art by Angel Hernandez, pages 1 through 9 and 14 to 20. And Cachet Whitman, pages 10 to 13. Colors by Joanna LaFuente, letters by Tom B. Long, and editors David Marriott and Tom Waltz. So we have 10 covers. IDW went variant cover crazy for this new issue 1. We've got 4 main covers, cover A by Gabriel Rodriguez and colors by Nelson Daniel, cover B by Angel Hernandez and colors by Joanna LaFuente, 2 retail incentive covers, cover retail incentive A by Casey Collar and colors by Josh Burcham, retail incentive B by Freddie E. Williams II and colors by Andrew Dahlhaus. And then a bunch of stores wanted their own retailer exclusive covers. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I do want to highlight Robbie Musso and EJ Sue, who are previous Transformers artists who did their own covers. I think those are ones that stand out. But yeah, there's a lot. And at the end, we've got these 2 metal exclusive variants, which are variants on cover A, like differently colored, I guess. But yeah, that's a lot of covers. I officially renounce the Pulling a Shelton name, so I just say don't do that. I'm not going to do it, and I highly recommend that other people do not do that. So just buy it.
I mean, it'll be hard to get some of these just because there's so many different stores.
Right. Yeah, you got to go to what, 6 or 5 different stores to get all these covers.
In 2 conventions.
Yeah. So, also, I guess one thing we should mention is the comic books for kids. That retail exclusive cover. So that goes to the proceeds to that go to charity for kids with cancer.
Well, yeah, this group, as we've mentioned on previous shows, they will donate comic books to hospitals all over the U.S. for kids to read. So it's a great charity.
Yep. All right, so let's get into which cover we like. So Yoshi, I'll start with you. Which cover would you want out of these 10 choices?
I would. I'm going to go with the very last option there. Is it Ruscio?
Robbie Musso?
Yeah. The very G1 Decepticon looking, very Cybertron looking cover. I call them virgin variants, where they don't have any logo or anything.
Oh, the showcase. Yeah, it's actually, if you scroll to the end of the file, there all the covers are there. If you're just looking at the first few pages, if you at the very end of the file, all the covers are in a gallery.
Gotcha. Yeah, so it's the retailer exclusive one by Robbie.
That's a nice one. Yeah,
it's like a hyper detailed G1 look. I really dig it.
It's like if the G1 cartoon was done with the basic same art style, but today.
Yeah.
All right. Very cool.
I'm trying to save us time, but I generally fucking hate what they did with the fucking logo and all that crap at the top. That has to be a Hasbro mandate. Tom would not do something like that with his free will.
I think it's probably an IDW thing, because the Bold New Era is their tagline for all their 20th anniversary stuff this year. So that's probably where that's coming from. All right, Daryl, which cover are you picking?
Well, I do like Robbie's quite a bit, but I think I'm going to go with something a little different this time. I'm going to take the one by The Fellowship by John Gallagher. This is the retailer exclusive that you can get at The Fellowship. I guess that's a store. It's the one that has the Optimus Prime beaten and damaged, standing over top of a Megatron that's got a couple blast holes in his chest. And yeah, I think that looks really like it's a dirty, gritty cover, and looks pretty cool, and hopefully a sign of the story.
Jeremy, which one are you picking?
I am going with the Casey Collar cover. I just think it's a nice kind of mix of old and new. You can't ever go wrong with Casey's art.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you, Jeremy. I'm going to pick Casey's cover too, the Retailer Incentive A. I'm always a fan of Casey's art. I think he just nails the characters, and I like how he's composed this with Megatron as a silhouette in the background, and then Prowl, Chromia, and Windblade, and then Optimus Prime there, and then you even got the alt modes of Starscream, Shockwave, and Soundwave in the background. And yeah, it's a nice composition, and I like the art. Just like his art style. All right, so let's get into the story. The sun is setting on Cybertron, a world at peace. On a mountain peak, a single bot scales to the top to get a view of the landscape and the city in the distance. This is the newly forged Rubble, and this newborn Cybertronian is discovering the wonders of his homeworld. In the valley below, Rubble's mentor, Bumblebee, calls out to him that they don't have time to stop and admire every view. But Rubble is just blown away by the majesty of the Cybertronian vistas. Bumblebee, a little exasperated, agrees that it's amazing, but they've got to get going. He doesn't want to keep Brainstorm waiting. Rubble quickly comes down and joins Bumblebee as they continue their journey. He asks his mentor, wasn't the point of walking so that they could see the sights since it's his first time outside the city? Bumblebee agrees, but reminds Rubble that he'll have plenty of time to see all the wonders of Cybertron. Right now, though, they've got to get to the transmission station so Rubble can learn Energon engineering from Brainstorm. Rubble agrees, but he's still too excited. He just wants one more look over the next ridge. He quickly runs ahead, gets to the top to admire the view, and trips over the edge. On the other side, Rubble awakens from his fall to look into the eyes of some smaller ape-like organic creatures. Rubble looks around for Bumblebee as the creatures surround him. They are accompanied by another organic creature that appears to be an octopus inside a floating orb. The orb has tentacles connected to the ape creatures, and they appear to be some kind of symbiotes or hive mind. Rubble greets the strange creature, and the floating octopus orb simply answers, Cybertronian. Small Cybertronian. Before Rubble can continue the conversation, Bumblebee finally catches up to him and asks if he's okay. Suddenly in the sky, a jet flies low above them and fires warning shots of energy blasts at the organic creatures, driving them off. As the creatures retreat into the night, the jet transforms into the form of Windblade and lands in front of Rubble and Bumblebee. Windblade greets Rubble kindly, but admonishes her friend Bumblebee for letting his mentee encounter Voin scavengers. Bumblebee protests that it wasn't his idea, and Rubble's just too eager to encounter everything on Cybertron. Anyway, Windblade mentions that her mission is also taking her to the Energon transmission station to check out an anomaly, and so she'll come with them. Bumblebee asks what's really going on, and Windblade mentions it might be sabotage. Bumblebee is incredulous. Could it be the Rise? Windblade downplays his concerns, but it's her job to check it out, just in case. Meanwhile, back in the city, an angry crowd is on the march. They are chanting, "Ascenticons to Tarn! In Termagax's name! In her name!" In a building above the street, Orion Pax watches the angry crowd with growing concern. Ironhide comes in, telling him that his guest is here. Orion asks what mood is he in. Ironhide compares it to the mood Prowl was in when he was trapped under a collapsed pylon for 10 cycles. In a word, not good. Ironhide asks if he really wants to leave the two of them alone for their meeting, and Orion answers, of course. Despite their disagreements, they're still colleagues, senators of Cybertron, and old friends. A short time later, Megatron enters. He greets Orion cordially, but coldly. Megatron mentions that he's a busy bot and has other places he needs to be. Orion tries to be inviting, but Megatron is not in a reciprocating mood. So Orion gets to the point. He asks Megatron to postpone his rally in Tarn. Megatron flatly refuses. Orion continues to try reasoning with him, pointing out that the last Ascenticon rally left a dozen injured bots and lots of damage. Megatron responds that he doesn't want violence either, but there are significant problems on Cybertron, and he is compelled to speak out as long as he is free to do so. Orion tells him to save the drama since he wasn't questioning anyone's freedom. He just wants to make sure the speech Megatron makes isn't going to incite a riot. Megatron replies that that's not his goal, but he can't control how other people react to his words. After all, Autobots like Orion have more experience with control than Ascenticons. Orion continues to try to reason with him. They're the same age and have seen the same things on Cybertron. Is their experience so far apart? As he leaves, Megatron answers back that even though they've spent the same time on Cybertron, their lives have been very different, which is why they're at the current impasse. Back out in the wilds, night has fallen. Rubble continues to be amazed by Cybertron, and now he sees the glowing liquid in the fabric of the planet. Bumblebee reminds him that Cybertron is a living world. As Rubble, Bumblebee, and Windblade continue their journey to meet up with Brainstorm, the discussion turns to Rubble's future. He still has to decide on an alt mode, and he asks his companions for advice. Did they always know what they wanted to be? Windblade encourages Rubble to explore Cybertron as much as he can and meet as many people as he can to figure out his place in the world. Bumblebee adds that Cybertronians live long lives, so there's no need to rush into any decisions, or to worry that any decisions they make will be fixed forever. As an example, Bumblebee mentions that he used to be a scout for security operations, working with Windblade, but now his job is more search and rescue. Windblade playfully points out that Bumblebee's job change wasn't entirely voluntary, to which Bumblebee responds that she's not helping. Rubble considers all these things as they keep walking. As he looks up in the sky, Rubble sees a shooting star. Windblade tells him that's actually one of the sleeping titans in orbit around Cybertron. They remain dormant, ready to defend Cybertron against any external threats, which Windblade points out thankfully hasn't been necessary for 10 megacycles. Another wonder for Rubble to marvel at. Finally, the bots have reached the transmission station. As they approach, Windblade scans the area, and something's not quite right. She draws her energy sword and approaches the main entrance. She tells Bumblebee to check the other building, and for Rubble to stay put until they check everything out. As Rubble waits outside, he hears a buzzing sound. He follows the sound around the side of the building to a gruesome sight. He finds the motionless body of Brainstorm with several holes in his chest. Rubble approaches cautiously, asking if Brainstorm's okay. But sadly, he is not. To be continued. So that is issue 1 of the new Transformers. So this is a completely new continuity, a new story. We're at a new beginning. We're starting...
Are you sure it's a new continuity?
Go listen to our interview with Brian Ruckley, and you will hear directly from the new writer of the series that this is indeed a reboot, a new continuity, completely new story, not connected to the old continuity.
That's what they want you to believe.
I think the death of Brainstorm in the first issue also is a clue that maybe this isn't the same continuity. But yeah, so this is it's a relatively subdued start. Not a lot of action in this first issue. Really, a lot of kind of world building, setting the stage. It's a relatively small cast. You focus on Bumblebee and Windblade and this new character Rubble, and then we do get a glimpse of Optimus Prime and Megatron, or should I say Orion Pax. And a couple of interesting nuggets here. So I'm already curious as to who this Termagax person is, who or what the Rise is, and the fact that the Ascenticons are a faction on Cybertron, but Ascenticon is not the faction we're used to hearing. So I'm curious to see where the Decepticons are going to come from. One thing I did notice is if you look at the crowd scene where the Ascenticons are marching and the flag that the Ascenticons have, so that the symbol on that flag, it looks kind of like an arrow pointing upward, which would make sense if your Ascenticons are, I guess they're ascending. They want to ascend higher in society. Maybe that's their goal. But if you turn that symbol upside down, it looks a little bit like a Decepticon symbol. Some hints of where we're going in the story, I think. Also, it was interesting to see that really, like we meet several Autobots in this issue, but really only Optimus Prime has a symbol on his shoulder. None of the other bots we see have symbols. Not even Ironhide, who is apparently Prime's as in many continuities, one of Prime's close friends. So curious where the symbols are going to come in. So I felt like there's a lot to be interested in this first issue. The art, I think, is okay for me, not awesome. I still prefer the gold standard of Alex Milne. I think he's kind of ruined me for all other Transformers artists, him and Casey Collar. So I kind of judge everything compared to those guys, but I still think it was well done. Also, you can see it's nice to see a delineation between the two different scenes where you've got all the scenes out in the wilderness are done by Angel Hernandez, and then the scenes with Prime and Megatron in the city are done by Cachet Whitman. So it's not very jarring since they broke up the art duties in a logical way. So I think it's a good start. I'm looking forward to the next issue. I'm also happy. I mean, I'm crossing my fingers that Diamond doesn't screw things up, but the fact that we only have to wait 2 weeks between issues, I think will help in moving the story along. So, so overall, I had a positive first impression for me. So I'll start with Yoshi. What did you think?
I read this story, and it really feels like no lessons were learned from the previous incarnation. We've got clearly a storyline here that's written for the trade. There was, you're waiting for more stuff to happen. There was no beginning, middle, and end to this. I agree with you about the art. I feel like, with all due respect to whoever the writer is, I just don't remember his name, but I feel like Barber had a lot of influence in this, because we're back to political intrigue and political storytelling. And for me, politics is one of the most boring things you can do. And then you have to read about politics in a make-believe universe that's like double boring. I don't know. For a reboot and the ability to set a new tone and put your best foot forward, it doesn't seem like any of these, what I was hoping for was, none of these notes were hit. It's pretty disappointing from my point of view. For a $4 or $5 book, for what, half the price of a paperback novel. I mean, you couldn't do one arc of a story within this whole thing just to make it feel like, we got our money's worth. And I like that Windblade transformed. that was cool to actually watch it. But yeah, there really isn't anything in here for me to say, here you are, new reader, go forward.
All right. No, fair enough. To be honest, I didn't expect you to like it, so I'm not disappointed.
It's as if AIDS became sentient and learned how to draw and write and was trying to kill people through the medium of comic books.
Okay, that's a bit harsh. All right, let's move on. Daryl, what did you think?
Well, I don't agree with Yoshi's review. I think I agree with you, Charles, on the art. It's definitely it didn't wow me anywhere, but I think they nailed the toy representations perfectly, and I think that's what they were going for.
Complete with 5mm holes.
Oh yeah,
All over
everywhere. Yeah. So also, I think Charles, you're going to have an issue with this comic going forward. Being the guy who can't stand when people call things the wrong name, his name is Orion Pax in this, and you called him Optimus Prime constantly. So I think you're going to have a problem with this thing here, boy.
I don't think I did that. I said at the end, I said I made one mistake. Throughout the review, I called him Orion.
Constantly. Jeremy, play back the tape. But as far as the story goes, I think this is a decent start for the continuity, using the eyes of Rubble to show the kind of the starting ground or the innocence of the reader. You know, that's a good place. Personally, I'm tired of Bumblebee. So, I mean, I could have done without Bumblebee in the book to begin with, but that's just me. I like the idea of the Ascenticons, that they aren't Decepticons right from the start, and I really like the idea that they'll become the Decepticons, whether they do or not. I think that's really cool. But you know, the writing's on the wall; they're likely going to do that, and I really want to, read the story and how that happens. This is before the war, right? So this is a story about how the war gets started. And unfortunately, wars are started politically. So you got to get some politics in there and how it happens. And one of the last books from the last regime was a really good political thriller. So, I mean, Tallulah 1 was fantastic, and it was all politics. So I think we have the ability to write a really good political book here about the start of a war. And I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out. I'm hoping that the robot modes don't stay their toy form for very long, because it feels odd to me as a longtime reader to have the book show the toys, or at least this detailed, of the toy. Maybe take some liberties and change up a few things, but as it is, they're right on the money when it comes to the toy form. But all in all, I think the story was a decent start. I'm looking forward for book 2. It should be pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
I get that the representation of the toys is important to you, and I get that. But your other note you like to hit in comics is action.
Yes.
And was the story that good that you're okay with the lack of action in this?
No. But this is book 1. I mean, you don't pick up the first issue of a book and they're already, at each other's throats, right? You got to have a reason for it.
Especially with a brand new continuity.
Right. So, I mean, I have to give them a little bit of space before they start pounding at each other. So, I mean, I do like a good battle, but there needs to be a reason behind it. So, I hope they don't take too long. But, You know, as far as you know, Charles is very exhibition heavy. He likes to get the story, a lot of story all the time. Story, no action. Super boring book.
Okay. I feel like you're mischaracterizing me.
No.
I like the lore, but I like the action too.
I've known you a very long time.
The action for Charles Darrell is collecting all the covers.
That's true. It is. But I've known you a long time, sir, and I think if I were to hand you just a blank sheet of paper, you would be enthralled. But
wow.
But I can take. I need to have the background of these characters because, like it or not, we might recognize them, but they're new. We need to remember they're new characters. They have the same names. They look very similar to what we've seen the last few years, but their characteristics and the bios are going to be new, you know? So they need to have a reason to start fighting, and I'm interested in learning that.
Yep, me too. All right, Jeremy, what are your thoughts?
I really enjoyed it, especially as a beginning. I guess I'm like Charles as well, where I like the political intrigue.
And you hate action.
Yep.
But I agree with Daryl. I mean, they need to have a reason to fight, and let's build up that reason. And this is we're putting the characters in different starting positions that they've ever been. I mean, Optimus and Megatron are senators, so they're essentially starting off on equal footing, but they're, you know, I guess in the same political body. You know, we have this whole like whatever's going on with those ape-like creatures, which and Brian in our interview mentioned that there are other organic life forms on the planet that we're going to run into. That's something interesting that we haven't really seen before. I really like the Rebel character as kind of a nice point of view. You know, we don't have any history that we preconceive about this particular character. So as Rebel is experiencing this new Cybertron, we are also, you know, experiencing it. But I think the storyline that really more drove my interest was the Optimus Megatron, which is funny because it's like a whole 4 pages out of the entire comic.
Mm-hmm.
I think that storyline is going to be the one that really has my interest. But the murder mystery is also interesting, and starting it off with Brainstorm being dead, that's you take a fan favorite character from the previous continuity, and you know they can't be here. No briefcases. But I don't know if did they even say what his job was, other than he was like really demanding, or I don't think he was a weapons engineer.
No, he was going to teach Rubble Energon engineering, whatever that is.
Okay.
So, I mean, sounds more like a wheeljack role than like
right, or like, you know, just a kind of a power engineer or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But so he was coming from a different place too.
We'll never know where he's coming from, unfortunately.
we'll find out eventually, like his history. But I think as a starting point, this is a really good one. I mean, compared to what we've gotten in the past, I mean, this follows in the tradition of like the Marvel #1 having the toy designs. that was pretty accurate to the original toy designs. This is accurate to the current toy designs. I think they're going to loosen that up as it goes along.
Yeah, if you remember back in when Robots in Disguise #1 came out, all the characters got the War for Cybertron designs.
Right.
So
I mean, you know, that's a Hasbro thing.
Yeah.
But the art, I think it was decent. I agree with you guys. The Optimus Megatron scenes, I think, were the better, like the ones that I preferred a lot more than the ones with Bumblebee and Windblade. And I don't know why exactly. Maybe it's because they're more angled and kind of a little bit cleaner. But all in all, this is definitely like, we have seen really bad Transformers books, and this is definitely not even close to the bad books. So this is one I would definitely recommend to people that are just curious about Transformers comics.
One other thing I just wanted to point out, I noticed in the crowd scene with the Ascenticons, like one of the characters in the center there, I think that's Barricade. At least, like, we just saw the Barricade figure as a retool of Prowl in the War for Cybertron Siege line, and his head, like his purple and yellow head, that looks very much like Barricade right in the center there. So maybe that's a hint of another character coming in from War for Cybertron. All right, well, hopefully in just 2 weeks we'll get issue 2. Crossing my fingers. Maybe 3. We'll see. All right, well, that is issue 1 of Transformers. All right, that was Transformers number 1, so let's move on to Transformers media news.
Not a lot of media news this week, which, is okay for me. I don't mind a little slower news week. But if you're like me and you have been upset that you cannot find the Machinima Prime Wars trilogy on YouTube anymore, I've got great news for you. It is now being streamed on roosterteeth.com.
Oh, thank the Matrix.
You can watch all 3 seasons on roosterteeth.com. It is a streaming service. I don't know whether it's free. Looks like it's free.
Yeah, these are free.
Okay, cool. So there you go.
You might want to check if they're region locked, though.
I'm going to do that right now. What fantastic episode should I start with?
Anything but Combiner Wars.
Oh crap, I started Combiner Wars.
No.
It's working. So, yeah. No, it's here. So it looks like there's also, if you remember at the beginning of this, there were actually 4 little like prelude videos. They're here too. So you can check those out if you are so inclined. Also in media news this week, Bumblebee, the movie, has received the Reframe stamp. What is the Reframe stamp? Well, I'm glad you asked. It is the stamp that recognizes standout gender-balanced films. It is a stamp launched last June. It's been awarded to 12 films, stamped in 2017, but the group's 2018 study found continued disparities in female representation and women of color, with just 4% of the top 100 films directed by a female, down from 6% a year ago, and 23% written by a female. So a total of 37% featured female leads, with only 9% being women of color. Clear? We're clear now. It's basically the character in the movie, the director, the main people involved with making the movie. There's enough women involved as opposed to men involved. That's basically, it balances out, and that's where this stamp comes in. And Bumblebee the movie received it, so that's good. Another accolade to add to Bumblebee the movie.
Cool.
Cool.
It's got a female screenwriter, a female lead. I think, did a good job.
And that's it for media news. Really quick week this week.
All right, well, let's move on to some convention news.
In convention news this week, a couple last-minute TFCon announcements.
We're all going. Haha, psych from earlier.
Yeah. Wah, wah. And people that are going, Derek J. Wyatt is returning to TFCon. He was the art director, lead character designer, and a color stylist on Transformers Animated. And he will be taking part in a Q&A panel with Eric Siebenaler and Marty Eisenberg, who also both worked on Animated.
You can also find him likely sitting next to Josh Perez if
likely,
they're not on
they're
a panel
buds.
somewhere. They are really good buds.
It doesn't say that he's going to be there on a specific day, so I'm assuming that he will be there all weekend. So, go check that out, talk to him. Also at TFCon, in her first ever convention appearance, is Marlene Aragon, the voice of Alita 1 in the G1 animated series. So she will be taking part in autograph sessions on Saturday. So if you're listening to this, you haven't missed her, because this comes out on Fridays. Mm-hmm. So be sure to...
They don't have to listen on Friday, though.
Well, no, but they can listen while they're waiting in line and realize that, oh, hey, this is the line for Marlene Aragon.
There's going to be so many people there. I bet you there's going to be people standing in line for Marlene, but they're going to be in line for, might be in line for Derek, or might be in line for one of the other guests and be like, I don't know what line I'm in. All these lines are intersecting. Whose line am I in
The logistics
anymore?
of this whole thing is going to be very interesting. I'm wondering how they're going to have signage, and how they're going to make sure people know who's going to be what days. Yoshi shared with us a spreadsheet that he's working on so he can keep it straight, and it's just the amount of people and when they're going to be there. It's just insane. All right, but moving on from TFCon. But sticking in the LA area, WonderCon Anaheim has announced some of their panels, and this will be March 29th and 30th, and they are going to have Transformers Cyberverse Going Cyber. This is from 5 to 6 p.m. March 29th in room 300B. It's a behind-the-scenes look at writing Transformers Cyberverse Season 1 from Cartoon Network and Hasbro Studios. It's going to include the writing team, Gavin Hignite, Zach Atkinson, Maycat, Dan Sagaro, story editor Randolph Hurd, and Hasbro Studios' Mikkel Hauser. And it's moderated by Jack Conway, who is from Comic-Con Film School 101. So they'll be discussing Season 1 and get a sneak peek of Season 2. So that sounds cool. Also, they're going to have Hasbro and IDW present the Transformers panel. Seems like we made the bad decision on what conventions to attend. Saturday, March 30th, 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., room 208. And this is going to have John Barber and editor David Marriott. They're there to introduce the bold new era of Transformers comics and to celebrate 35 years of our favorite Cybertronians. And it says there are going to be surprise panelists from the past, present, and future of Transformers. So we'll have to see. Hopefully they stream that or someone records it. I really want to see it.
How much is a WonderCon?
It's already too late. WonderCon is one of those that sells out almost immediately.
Okay.
The last one we have here is Entertainment is Female, a conversation with Hollywood executives. This is from the production companies. This is March 30th, 3 p.m. to 4 p.m., room 209. From the production companies that brought you Transformers, Deadpool, Lego Movies, Walking Dead, Mouse Guard, Mission Impossible, women executives discuss how they're pushing for female representation in Hollywood while adapting comics and games. It's going to have Jeanette Francis from Bad Robot, Metger, I am sorry for mispronouncing that, from Boom Studios, Nikki Baida from Genre Films, Greg Kuzak from Hasbro / Allspark Pictures, Aubrey Davis-Lee from Lord Miller, Sam Crawley from Skybound, and there's going to be a Q&A there. So I expect Bumblebee movie is going to be brought up significantly in that. That is it from, hopefully we do get some news out of these that we can link people to in coming weeks. So that is all of convention news this week.
We have we just have one little last minute feedback item that was put in our
we should probably
Discord
mention
chat.
the new Discord channel.
Yes.
Yeah, we have
ahead,
a new
Jeremy.
Discord channel, aptly titled Feedback for the Show. This is very blatantly an idea I stole from the Cantina Cast podcast, who I'm in their Discord as well. But basically, if you are in our Discord and you want to give us feedback, just shoot something in there and we'll put it in the appropriate show.
Preferably before
Yes.
we start recording the show,
Yes.
not during recording the show. I'm
Well,
making an
because we have
exception
no other
this time,
feedback.
but please do it before. Shh. Good friend of the show, Dinobot Maximize, is asking, would we like to see any one-shots from the previous sagas? For example, a history of the Magnus armor or another story. At least for me personally, I would not be opposed to having, if it could be worked in, like you just have a random, even a mini series or a single issue dealing with some, self-contained story. I think this might be hard since the old continuity is pretty much, it's over, and I think, out of sight, out of mind. So it might be difficult to kind of market a book that is from a, now a year old continuity, and will going forward be years old continuity. But if you could market it and get people on board, I think I would be open to that. I think there's lots of rich things that were not mined in the previous IDW universe that you could explore. But I think for right now the focus should probably be on the new series, because we want to see that succeed and see where the new direction is going. But I wouldn't be opposed to revisiting that at some point in the future. Maybe like a Lost Light tale from the crew that diverged in the last issue and is off in another universe having random adventures. Yeah, let James Roberts tell a tale from there or something. What do you think, Daryl?
Well, I agree with you on one point. We're too close to it right now. It needs to be dead for a while. Going back and telling stories right now is really slapping the face of Brian Ruckley and what he's trying to do. So let it be dead. Be done with it for a little while. So if you wanted to do something in the future, have it be something that isn't widely distributed. So if you were to do something like a convention exclusive or a giveaway or something like that, so or like an online exclusive where it's like free
comic book day
kind of thing, yeah, that would be good. But that usually is a preview for their own stuff, so I don't know whether that would work. But something that a fan who knows the backstory and who remembers the old stuff, who would put in the effort to chase it down and then appreciate it after they got it, that would be something that I would be all for. Yeah. But as of right now, leave it done. Leave it done with.
I pretty much agree with what you guys have said. It needs some time. Like the new stuff needs time to establish itself. I see two ways of it happening. One, the new stuff doesn't do well at all in the sales, so they pull something like this out as a quick spike for sales. But the other way would be, this is very successful, but there's like whatever they want. Like you mentioned, a convention exclusive or something like that, where they could just do a one shot marketed as this is not in the current continuity, like do a Transformers multiverse or something like that, where you could tell stories from the various continuities. And then, I think it'd be fun. I would love to see a brief return to some of these iterations of the characters. It'd be great. But like, look at how long passed between Transformers number 80 and Regeneration 1. So I don't want it to wait that long, but sometime
I'll be a grandfather by then.
Give it at least 5 years or so.
We'll be on Transmissions 1000.
We can commission it as a special. By then we will have reached the Patreon goal to buy IDW.
All right. Well, thank you, Dinobot, for that question. That was an interesting, interesting thing to think about as we're looking at the new series starting up this week. Why don't you guys let us know what you thought of the first issue of the new Transformers comic? So, send us your thoughts. Either put them in our Discord channel, the Feedback for the Show channel, or you can send us the traditional feedback through the blog post on the website or through social media.
Or transmissionspodcast.com/feedback, where you can leave voicemail and we'll play it on the show.
Yes. Should have led with that.
Somewhere Yoshi is just
reminding me,
at
Jeremy.
TFCon just cursing because he's listening to this.
He never listens to the shows he's not on. All right, everyone. Thanks. Hope if you're at TFCon, have a great time. I'm very sad that we can't be there. I missed the last TFCon too, so I'm just super depressed, but you guys have fun. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Later.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to this episode of Transmissions. But just because this episode is over doesn't mean the Transformers fun has to stop. Join us and other Transformers fans on our Discord chat server by visiting transmissionspodcast.com/discord. If you would like to learn more about how you could support the Transmissions Podcast, just visit transmissionspodcast.com/support. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you again next week.
Jeremy was fired from the show.
Oh wait, no. Is it still? It's still recording. Good, it's still recording. It's just I have the wrong window open, and I was like, Control W.
Man, don't think I could make the same joke again. Feeling wouldn't have been the same.